Jamie, good to join you. Can I pick up where I left off with Carolyn? I mean, they've got to talk about the possibility of a coalition at the moment, haven't they, whether they like it or not? I mean, you can't have the leader of the Labour Party saying we need a general election right now. Look at the polls. They wouldn't get an overall majority.
No, afternoon, Alistair. That's quite correct there, because if you just look at the facts and figures, obviously the SNP over the last 25 or so years since Tony Blair won that kind of landslide there, they've obviously strengthened their position in Scotland, and Labour have kind of gone backwards in Scotland. So if they're going to want to get that overall majority to try and govern in Parliament, they will have to do some backroom deals. And similarly with the crisis in the Tory party, Alistair, you look at Boris got that majority because of the Red Wall and what's been happening in kind of the local elections and in some of the kind of the by-elections as well, as he's not only been losing support in that red wall, Alistair, he's losing support in the blue wall. And I think it's kind of what's been happening probably in some of these elections rather than kind of the integrity of Boris. This was probably left being pushed out, because a lot of these Tory MPs are looking now, we got 2 years away from a general election. If we carry on the way we're going, we're probably going to lose our seat. So I think you're right there. The Labour Party have got to be open about coalitions and what they would be doing. But again, what's the Tory party going to do? Because you could end up in a position like Theresa May did, where if they do have an election, manage to get, say, enough to kind of govern but not have an overall majority, they'll have to do some kind of deals themselves.
Do you sense, and it's early days and I completely accept that by focusing so sharply on tax spend, the size of the state, where you've got the rest of the field versus Rishi Sunak, basically, that those candidates have got it right? There's a poll in The Sun this morning that suggests Tory supporters, who will, after all, have the final say in this matter, they want to talk a lot more about immigration. Not many of them want to talk about Brexit.
No, I think, Alistair, there's three things that we've got to consider here. There's obviously, you've got to win the support of your fellow MPs, and that's where the pitching's going in, and you can see some MPs coming out supporting different candidates at the moment. So that's one of the first things you need to do. Depending then, if it does go to the Conservative members to put that vote in, then you obviously need to appeal to the wider membership. And we know that immigration is a big part of why the Labour Party kind of fell away in the north, with Boris saying, I'll get Brexit done, we'll have control of our borders. And a number of those Labour supporters that switched to the Tories have got a big kind of gripe with the way immigration's been run. But you've got to remember with these candidates, I think we've got 9 at the moment, and you're talking on the show that this could go up and up and up, that it's going to be, to say, we're 2 years away. The latest we can have a general election, Alistair, is January 2025. So we would normally have a summer election. So we could be less than 2 years away from a general election. And the next leader of the Conservative Party, who would become the Prime Minister, has to win that general election. So they need to appeal to kind of the broad brush. It's quite obvious they're talking about integrity and kind of taxes at the moment, because that's what's topical in the cost of living crisis. But there's some big things that's going to be on the plate of the next Prime Minister, Alistair. You've got energy security. You know, one of the reasons we've got this cost of living crisis is because of a lack of energy security. And successive governments have been parking. Theresa May tried to do this. It's probably what cost her kind of a majority in 2017. When you're looking at social care and the cost of all of that and trying to fund that in the long term, those are the issues that are going to be on the kind of the plate of the next Prime Minister. But they're not going to be issues I think we're going to be hearing much over the next couple of weeks, because those are the ones that they can't really explain how they're going to pay for it all.
Nadeem Zahawi's already raised the issue of identity politics, gender and the like. Penny Mordaunt felt the need just before publishing her campaign video to clarify via social media what she believes she said about gender identity. When I said that slightly surprised me as being a burning issue, Joanne Nadler, who you know, said, no, it doesn't surprise me at all. It is a burning issue amongst the core grassroots of the Conservative Party.
No, indeed, and across kind of the wider electorate themselves, because, you know, people have been calling out the Labour Party when they can't explain what a woman is. These are the things that kind of cut through, and a lot of people talk about them. They may have some fancy policies and what they're going to do to fix the cost of living crisis, but the media, you know, on social media, what people are talking in the pubs generally is, oh, did you see that MP couldn't explain what a woman is on the radio the other day? Those are the things that do cut through. And ultimately, what the public want really now is a competent government, Alistair. You know, we've had all of this COVID crisis the last couple of years. We're coming out the back end of that. I think where we are with the leadership at the moment, it seems to be Richie Sunak, it's difficult for him to promise any tax cuts, obviously, because he was holding the books over the last couple of years. So you've kind of got Richie Sunak saying, well, I need to look after the books. I can't cut taxes. But, you know, we've got the highest tax burden on the public now for 70 years. And the Conservative Party, Alistair, as you well know, is one that's generally been a low tax party, putting money back to the kind of the public. And I heard some of the other stations this morning challenging Jeremy Hunt, challenging Sajid Javid about, if you cut taxes, that might push up inflation. Well, actually, if you look at the drivers' inflation of the country at the moment, about 2/3 of that is due to the energy costs, the transport costs, food costs, which is kind of global factors that's driving that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They could be cutting taxes immediately today and having an impact that's kind of at the pump.
Fascinating stuff. And I just remind folk at home, I know, and obviously you know because you were there, but you formerly worked at the Office of National Statistics as well. So on those number crunching points, you're as good at that as you are at the broad politics. Jamie Jenkins, always great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. And keep in touch as this campaign develops and unfolds. Thank you very much indeed.